surprise. Guess I should have known.
Hello, thanks for clicking on this video. You know, among all the amazing things about the internet, there are also some really, really bad things about the internet. And one of them is that the internet, and especially social media, makes it a lot easier for people to stalk other people for a long time without being detected. And that's a problem, because by the time a cyberstalker has stalked enough to be detected, their obsession may have escalated to a dangerous level. Exacerbating this problem with cyberstalking is the fact that it's not taken as seriously as it should be by anyone, but especially by a good number of social media influencers who are really quick to put the stalker label on anyone who annoys them. That's what we're going to talk about today. By the time you finish this video, I want you to take stalking and cyberstalking seriously, and I want you to be well informed about it so you don't misread or misreport a situation or spread misinformation about it. I also want you to have a really clear understanding of the differences between free speech and stalking/harassment. So we're going to talk about what cyberstalking is and what it isn't, what it looks like, and I'm going to tell you about 4 really insane cyberstalking cases. One of them involved intense gang stalking by one of America's favorite e-commerce platforms. And another one was such a shock to the conscience that it resulted in the first federal cyberstalking leading to death charge in the US. After that, we'll talk about how to detect and avoid stalking behavior before it escalates to a dangerous level. Before I get into the meat of this conversation, though, I want to remind you that this video is for informational purposes only. I am not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. So anything I say should be verified independently and not taken as face value. I'll provide links in the description for important stalking resources and information so you can follow with your own research. And one last thing before I get into it, one of the reasons I'm interested in this topic is because there's a high index of stalkers on YouTube and in the true crime community, coupled with a really low index of understanding of what it is and what it isn't and how serious it can be. However, this video will not talk about any of those current stalking cases. This video should not be taken as commentary on any of those ongoing cases for either side. This is just me helping people have a better understanding, hopefully. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, a stalker is a person who engages in a course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to fear his or her safety or the safety of others or suffer substantial emotional distress. Let's talk through some statistics of stalking, okay? And these are 2017 figures, okay? An estimated 13.5 million people are stalked in a 1-year period in the United States. Nearly 1 in 3 women and nearly 1 in 6 men have experienced stalking victimization at some point in their lives. More than half of all victims indicated that they were stalked before the age of 25, and nearly 1 in 4 were stalked before the age of 19. The vast majority of stalking victims are stalked by someone they know. 69% of female and 80% of male stalking victims were threatened with physical harm. People aged 18 to 24 experience the highest rate of stalking victimization among adults. Almost half of stalking victims experience at least one unwanted contact per week. 11% of stalking victims have been stalked for 5 years or more. And more than twice as many victims are stalked with technology than without. And that's why I'm focusing on cyberstalking. Now, what's the impact? The impact is that 46% of stalking victims fear not knowing what will happen next. 29% of stalking victims fear it will never stop. 1 in 8 employed stalking victims lose time from work as a result of their victimization, and more than half lose 5 days of work or more. 1 in 7 stalking victims move as a result of their victimization. Stalking victims suffer much higher rates of depression, anxiety, insomnia, and social dysfunction than people in the general population. 2 in 3 stalkers pursue their victims at least once per week, many daily, using more than one method. 78% of stalkers use more than one tactic. Weapons are used to harm or threaten victims in 1 out of 5 cases. Almost 1 in 3 stalkers have stalked before. Intimate partner stalkers are the most likely stalkers to approach, threaten, and harm their victims. Now, let's talk about the types of stalking. There are 5 really subtypes of stalking, and this YouTuber in the psychology community has done a really good description of those, so I'm going to show that to you right now.
Mullen and the others propose there are 5 stalker subtypes. Firstly, there is the rejected stalker. They pursue their victims in order to reverse or to avenge a rejection. Commonly, this might be a partner who does not want to accept the end of the relationship. It could also be a family member, a parent, or a friend that the victim has broken contact with. When attempts to reconcile fail, the stalker may increase their efforts. They may go looking for information as to where the victim is, who they're with, what it is they're doing, or looking for information that they can use. Now, they may use it to try further attempts at reconciliation, or they may use it to fuel the misery that they already feel, or they may try to use it to seek revenge due to their inability to accept the end of the relationship. They may use manipulative behavior such as bringing or threatening to bring legal action against their victims. They may label their victims as having a mental illness. They may even threaten to harm themselves or someone else to coerce their victims to intervene. But these tactics are all about trying to force the victim into some kind of contact. Then there is the incompetent stalker. Now, they may have a fixation or an obsession, or in some cases a sense of entitlement to an intimate relationship or friendship with someone who has attracted their attention. This person believes their behavior might lead to a closer relationship, seeking some kind of contact or intimacy. Now, Mullen believed that this kind of stalker to be socially awkward and intellectually limited. They tend to continue stalking even when their victim is not reciprocating. They tend to use methods that can be creepy, frightening, and counterproductive. Next, there is the intimacy seeker. Now, this is when someone identifies, usually a stranger, though not all the time, but they identify someone and believe that they are the one. They try to establish a friendship or an intimate, loving relationship with their victim. It's like they were meant to be together. They fantasize and sometimes behave as if the love is reciprocated. Then there is the predator stalker. Now, they have no desire for any relationship with their victims. They just want power and control. They find pleasure in gathering information about their victim now, either getting it from others or from those close to the victim, or perhaps searching back through social media posts, comments from years back. Any information is power to them. They might try to use it to manipulate or to use against their victims. They use it to justify their actions to themselves. They often troll their victims, fantasizing about assaulting them or spying on their victims in order to plan an assault. They tend to want to gain control of others, often due to feeling little or no control over their own lives, and they tend to have voyeuristic and sadistic desires. And lastly, there is the resentful stalker. Now, this stalker feels some sense of injustice and desires revenge against their victim. They pursue a vendetta out of some sense of grievance. They are motivated mainly by a desire to frighten and to punish their victim. And the cruelty of their behavior often reflects their perception that they have been treated unfairly, perhaps humiliated, even though it is way out of proportion. Because in many cases, they may have just had to face the consequences for their own already bad behavior. Perhaps they've been dumped by a partner or fired for misconduct or perhaps even charged with a crime, but they view themselves as the victim and are seeking some kind of revenge. They don't see themselves as a stalker, but on some moral crusade, some crusade to right or wrong. The belief often being, if I am suffering, so should you. And calling them out on their stalking behavior tends to make things worse because this kind are both vindictive and vengeful.
Now, let's go through actual stalking behaviors, okay? This is a great list put together by Psych Central, and I'm going to go through 23 ways that you could be cyberstalked. 1, false accusations. 2, gathering information. Monitoring. And this monitoring is to be differentiated from just watching someone's public YouTube channel. This more involves, an intimate partner who gains access to another person's or a friend's actual device and then gains access to their IP addresses. Or, even if it's just an acquaintance on YouTube that you've never met, and they somehow get information about how to hack your accounts and look at your private messages as they go through. That's monitoring. Flying monkeys. We're going to talk about a case that involved group harassment. There's a couple cases. One case involves a family that group harassed a family member, and another case involves an actual corporation, eBay, who group stalked some bloggers when their feelings were hurt about what the bloggers said. Playing the victim is another way. Sending viruses, ordering products, arranging a meeting, posting insults, physical stalking, obsessive texts, repetitive harassment, GPS tracking, geotagging, and metadata, social media, flaming, monitoring apps, syncing devices, spoofing, online scammer, identity theft, account takeover, and finally catfishing. Now, I'm sure you heard some of those items and said, oh yeah, that person did that to me. Oh yeah, that person did that to me. Oh, I noticed that person did that. Well, as I've discussed, it's not a one-off action. It's a course of conduct over time. It's very important to also recognize the differences between someone using their First Amendment rights and someone who's using the internet to cyberstalk. The most important differentiation between cyberstalking and free speech is intent. When harmful intent is coupled with a course of conduct over time, it could be considered cyberstalking. But since it can't be based on a one-off incident, it's important for anyone who believes they're a target to document all of the instances that they believe are dangerous and then go to the police. It won't work to go to the police and say, look at all these videos that were made about me that say things that I don't agree with. In order for a bunch of videos about one person to be considered cyberstalking, the videos need to include false allegations about the target, all kinds of disparaging and malicious remarks about the target, and they need to be coupled with other behaviors such as making regular contact with the target, either through email, text, or phone calls or social media, sending a number of unwanted packages to a target, making social media accounts that are meant to either impersonate or harass the target, or enlisting other people in the conduct to help them. I regularly see YouTubers accusing other people of cyberstalking when videos are made about them. And those videos contain screenshots or screen recordings from content that is publicly available on that person's channel. I've seen people suggest that when a screenshot from a public channel is used in a video, the person who made the video has been stalking them. That is a very dangerous oversimplification and misrepresentation of what it means to stalk. You're not stalking someone if you regularly view their public content. That's what it's supposed to be there for, is to be viewed, right? It moves into the realm of stalking if it's done obsessively with malice against the subject over a period of time and coupled with other behaviors. One gray area that really needs to be addressed is posting screenshots from group chats or private conversations. Doing that once in a while or once or twice without an intent to harm that person should not be labeled as stalking. It becomes stalking when extraordinary measures are taken to get that private information and when it's intentionally used to cause that person harm rather than provide commentary. These are important nuances that should all be taken into consideration before you go out and accuse content creator of stalking. However, if you do see a regular and malicious course of conduct over time toward one person, it's dangerous to make excuses for it and enable the person doing it to keep going further. Anyone who is willing to engage in such behavior may be dangerous, and your excuses for their behavior could be used as justification in their minds to go even harder. You wouldn't want that, right? If it ended up in somebody actually being physically harmed, isn't it enough that they're already being emotionally and psychologically harmed? Now, as I mentioned earlier, up to 35% of stalking cases involve violence, and that fact came into frightening focus just a few weeks ago when a man who had been stalking a podcaster for over 2 years drove across the country from Texas to Washington, showed up at her home, and murdered her and her husband before taking his own life. The stalker and the victim became acquainted as a result of her podcast, but then he started coming on too strong. The victim, who was married, asked him repeatedly to stop contacting her. He refused to listen, and in late 2022 and early 2023, he sent her gifts and flowers and a scarf and other things, and called her from a nearby hotel a couple of times, and repeatedly contacted her husband with threats. The victim obtained a restraining order on her stalker, but pieces of paper do not stop stalkers, and you will continue to hear this as I discuss these cases. On March 10th, 2023, just a few days after she got that stalking restraining order, the stalker drove from Texas to Washington, broke into his victim's house, and killed the victim and her husband before killing himself. The victim's mother lived in the house with her and the husband, and when she heard the attack, she was able to escape through a window and call 911. Unfortunately, it was too late. When the police arrived, the victim's husband was lying dead on the front lawn, and the stalker and his victim were found dead inside the house. Now, this case illustrates a few really important things. First, stalkers are not usually complete strangers. They're usually a current or former partner or an acquaintance or family member. They can even be an internet acquaintance, as you can see here. Second, having a restraining order is nice, but stalkers are delusional by nature and will not accept or respect any boundaries to their behavior. This case ended up in the most tragic way possible because of that. That's why it's very, very important to be able to detect the red flags that you could be dealing with a stalker so you can avoid getting entangled with them before they become obsessed with you. Third, a stalker will use any means possible to get to their target, and social media gives them ample opportunities for that. It's impossible to know in advance how dangerous a stalker can be. So if you're a content creator with the potential of reaching a large audience, it's important to lock down all of your social media, ensure that it's not easy to find your location or personal information, and be extremely careful about who you allow to have direct private contact with you. This case shows how hard it is to detect cyberstalkers over a period of time and how hard it is to get real accountability for cyberstalking. In a viral video that popular art YouTuber Emily Artful posted in June 2021, she revealed that another popular art YouTuber called Creepshow Art, and the girl's name was Shannon, had been cyberstalking her for 10 years. It's a 2-hour video with a great deal of evidence showing that Shannon from Creepshow Art's cyberstalking led to the loss of her job, the loss of her home for a period of time, and the loss of her mental health and well-being. Shannon from Creepshow Art became obsessed with Emily Artful when she started dating a guy named Anthony, who is Emily's ex-boyfriend. Over the course of that 10 years, Shannon created alt accounts that she used to contact and befriend Emily Artful. She mirrored Emily's YouTube channel with similar titles and themes and series. She posted defamatory and transphobic remarks about Emily on Lolcow with anonymous accounts. And along with her boyfriend, she sent Emily's employer a number of compromising videos of Emily, accusing her of being an active cam model. When those videos were sent to Emily's employer, she lost her job, which also caused her to be homeless for a period of time. Since most of the posts and messages were anonymous, Emily couldn't get help from the police until someone could prove who originated them. That's one of the ways bad guys win on social media. They have the opportunity to hide behind sock accounts that can wreak just as much havoc as another account with relative assurance that they'll never be detected. Emily Artful was never able to press charges, but after being advised by a lawyer to document everything, she spent a good deal of time documenting everything she could until she could put it out in one video. I don't know, maybe she could have pressed charges, but just chose not to. I don't remember exactly, so don't quote me. Make a video she did, and here are some excerpts from that great video.
Please, can you stop scaring me? Please, I'm like begging him. But I'm trying so careful not to set him off at the same time. I just kept thinking, I'm not relevant enough to have two completely unrelated stalkers. This can't be right. Now this makes so much more sense, how they had the time and the resources to make so many sock puppet accounts. I mean, just tons. And I'm frustrated with myself that I didn't document more before like 2017. The truth of the matter is I didn't want to see this shit. I didn't want to interact with these fucking sock puppet accounts that were bullying me and shaming me and fucking trying to rally people against me.
Now, Shannon from Creepshow Art attempted to defend herself in an equally long video that she posted 6 months later. But it was so riddled with excuses, justifications, deflections, and victim blaming that it went over like really a fart in church. Shannon never posted on her channel again, so she was effectively canceled by her own bad behavior, and her channel has since been removed from YouTube, but notably, it wasn't taken down until just recently. Emily Artful still has a channel, but she's not very active on it, and it's clear that being cyberstalked by Shannon has had a big impact on her productivity and motivation to create content on YouTube. This case is absolutely bonkers to me and shows that it's possible for anyone to stoop to the level of stalking, even a group of entitled and vindictive eBay executives who can't take First Amendment criticism. This is Ina and David Steiner. They run an e-commerce blog called E-commerce Bytes. It is a blog dedicated to informing eBay sellers, and as part of that, they covered eBay's moves as a corporation, and sometimes they were critical of eBay's management. In 2019, the Steiners started receiving a slew of anonymous and threatening emails, social media messages, and packages. The emails and public posts overtly threatened Ina Steiner's life. The cyber threats were followed up by disturbing and threatening packages sent to their home. In these packages, they received a box of live larvae and spiders, a box of live cockroaches. They received a sympathy wreath addressed to David with condolences on the death of his wife, Ina, who was alive, a book on how to survive the death of a spouse, a Halloween mask featuring the face of a bloody pig, and an ordered but not ultimately sent pig fetus. Pornography was mailed to the Steiners' next-door neighbors in the Steiners' names, and a Craigslist post doxing the Steiners' names and address invited people to come to their house for a sex party, forcing them to turn away loads of people who came knocking on their door to take place in the pseudo festivities. At one point, the Steiners noticed that they were being followed around town by a specific car. They live in Massachusetts. They took down the license plate number and reported it to police. That's when the police started investigating the harassment and got the FBI involved. And now remember, all of this activity was done anonymously. So the Steiners had absolutely no clue who was behind this stuff. Imagine their shock and horror when law enforcement came back and informed them that the license plate came back from a rental car that was rented in the name of an eBay executive. Upon further investigation, it turns out this activity was not just done under the direction of some mid-level management schmuck at eBay whose feelings were hurt about some words on the internet. This campaign was conceived of and directed by the head of safety and security at eBay. Did you hear me? I feel like Sheriff Grady when I say that, but did you hear me, folks? The guy who was in charge of protecting the safety and security of eBay and its sellers directed a corporate cyber terrorism attack against critical bloggers. The feds were not happy about this. Here are some clips from the press conference that they held announcing charges against these eBay executives.
One of those executives texted that he wanted to, quote, crush this lady, unquote, referring to the woman in the couple who ran the site, and another told Baugh, his subordinate, to, quote, take her down, unquote. One from a Twitter private message to the couple on August 7th, 2019, saying, quote, what it going to take for you to answer me? Guess I'm going to have to get your attention another way, bitch, close quote. Another tweet on August 10th came 14 minutes after the bloody pig mask was delivered to their residence. It said in all caps, quote, do I have your attention now? This allegedly included trying to break into the couple's garage so they could install a GPS on their car. Before the trip, Baugh and others practiced installing a GPS on a Toyota RAV4 in the eBay parking lot. Following weeks of this, Baugh next set in motion a strategy to manipulate the couple into believing that eBay was reaching out to help them stop the harassment campaign. This was an effort to earn the couple's trust by having one of the defendants, Brian Gilbert, call them as a representative of eBay and offer help in investigating the harassment campaign, which of course was being orchestrated by the defendants themselves. He reported back to other co-defendants that they, quote, are totally rattled, unquote. They allegedly fabricated internal eBay documents to create the appearance that for some time eBay had been concerned about seemingly crazy online criticism on the couple's website, including the false allegation that the couple had threatened the company's CEO. At one point, when several of the defendants feared that the Natick police might trace the harassment campaign back to California, they compiled a list of people living in the Santa Clara area who they might be able to frame for the harassment activity if needed. Defendant Baugh directed Stephanie Popp and Stephanie Stockwell to find suitable candidates in the Santa Clara area.
Did you notice what the prosecutor just said? These people at eBay actually pretended to be concerned for the Steiners so they could contact them and find out how much they knew, just so they could turn around and frame some private citizens for everything in California. As a longtime veteran of the tech industry, I am absolutely horrified and disgusted that people who were capable of climbing up the corporate ladder as safety and security officers could abuse their power and position this way. And what did eBay do after they were charged? Oh, they issued a lame apology, then gave the CEO a really big multi-million-dollar payout when they kicked him out the door. Absolutely sickening. That's why the Steiners have now filed a civil lawsuit against eBay, and personally, I wish them all the luck in the world to prevail. This last cyberstalking case is a doozy. Such a doozy that by the time the cyberstalkers were finally caught and disciplined, it led to the first case that was prosecuted as death as a result of cyberstalking. Here's a clip of what happened at the end of this cyberstalking horror.
What I can tell you is I can confirm a shooting that occurred in the lobby of the county courthouse this morning at approximately 8 o'clock. One lone male suspect entered that lobby and opened fire. There was an exchange of gunfire between the Capitol police officers and this suspect. As a result of that gunfire, the suspect is dead in the lobby. There was 2 civilians shot, females, that are also confirmed dead. And there has been 2 Capitol police officers shot with non-life-threatening injuries at this time.
Several people died during that incident, including the stalking victim, her friend who was there at the courthouse with her to lend moral support, and bystanders. All at the hands of David's father, Buddy, who turned the gun on himself to end the gun battle. So what happened leading up to that shocking event? It starts with a custody battle. In 2006, David Matusiewicz and his wife, Christine Belford, did what over 50% of married couples do, and they got divorced. The Matusiewiczes had 3 young girls together, and in the wake of the divorce, a nasty custody battle ensued. In 2007, David and some members of his family bought a Winnebago, and under the guise of taking their 3 girls on a trip to Disney World, they actually drove that thing with the girls all the way down to Nicaragua and camped somewhere off the grid. When the girls asked about their mother, they were told that she had taken her own life and was dead. It took months and months, 18 months exactly, for the authorities to find them, while Christine was worried sick about her children. But they were ultimately found, and the kidnappers were convicted of kidnapping, and David and his mother both served time in prison as a result of that kidnapping. But the incarceration did very little to stop their quest to ruin Christine's life and ultimately end it. In fact, it was during this time in prison that David hatched an elaborate plan to harass and intimidate Christine using the internet. And his mother, Lenore, spent her time in prison handwriting a list of outrageous and false accusations about Christine that she turned into a website when she got out of prison. This elaborate campaign included the following. YouTube videos were posted showing that David's family had secretly filmed Christine and her girls in front of her home. Again, these were posted she was filmed secretly, and these videos were put on YouTube. David's mother, Lenore, created a website called A Grandmother's Impossible Choice with a list of horrible and frankly delusional accusations about Christine, including saying that Christine wanted to sell her children to PEDOs for $50,000 each. David's sister, Amy, wrote letters to social services accusing Christine of the same things that were posted on this website. Similar letters were sent to the girls' school and church. The family enlisted a friend to spy on Christine and report back on their conversations and whereabouts. This friend gave the family Christine's Facebook password so they could hack into her account. In December 2011, David's father, Buddy, drove from Texas to Delaware and showed up at Christine's home unannounced. Christine's boyfriend had to tell Buddy to leave while the girls hid from his sight inside the house. Christine was so frightened after this incident that she put her house on the market. In 2012, David, the husband, applied for a reduction in his child support payments, and this led to a hearing being scheduled. So David got permission from the court to attend the hearing in person, even though he was also given permission to dial into the hearing from Texas and told he didn't have to travel all that way. In February 2013, on the day of the hearing, David and his father drove to the courthouse in a car that was filled with guns, ammunition, knives, an electric shock device, binoculars, pictures of Christine and the children at their home, 3 sets of plastic handcuffs, and a bulletproof vest. Police also found a spiral notebook labeled H/L on the front, which contained a list of people they felt wronged them during the custody battle. Prosecutors allege that this was a hit list. After David and his father hugged and parted ways inside the courthouse, his father opened fire, killing Christine and a friend, again, who came along for moral support, and then engaged in a gun battle with Capitol Police and wounded some officers before taking his own life. As a result of all of this, David, his sister Amy, and his mother Lenore were all sentenced to life in prison in 2016. Now, as shocking and insane as that story is, it's almost more shocking to see the YouTube videos that Lenore posted in the aftermath of the courthouse shooting. These videos show how delusional and convinced some stalkers are that they've done nothing wrong.
There was a tragedy in Delaware last week. People died. People were wounded. And those of us that are left are trying to make sense of it all. Is there anyone in Delaware now that I and my family can trust besides my 2 friends, Linda and Carl? Is there? What do you think? Thank you. My nephew was treated with LSD for attention deficit disorder when he was very young. He's dead. She offhandedly said, when I sell David's 3 blonde white American girls, I'm going to get $50,000 each, and they'll never be found because of my my connections to the local crime family. And then she said, I have to do things to mommy. And the prayer says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. It does not say forget. It says forgive. No, nothing was planned. David collected his papers, sipped his coffee, and started to leave. And I said, break a leg. Later, we heard about the shooting. I was told that David shot his wife, another woman, 2 officers, and himself, and was dead. No, was my first thought. And he wanted to talk to Christine about their children. He wouldn't have shot her. He was looking for any crumb of information he could get about them. I had asked Tom not to carry any weapons on this trip. I understood his need to carry a gun where we live in the middle of cartel country on the border of Texas and Mexico. in the middle of Drug Central, where home invasions and kidnappings are an everyday threat.
Thank goodness the feds were able to recognize and prosecute this crime for what it was, but that is cold comfort for the 3 girls who lost their mother before these stalk monsters could be stopped. Recognizing cyberstalkers before they become a problem can be daunting because 90% of what they do is done in the shadows with complete anonymity, thanks to social media. All we can do is think carefully about whether the behavior we are seeing is normal and try to avoid anyone who displays that questionable behavior. Everyone has instincts, so you should use your own judgment, use your instincts. But here are some behaviors that may indicate that someone is capable of becoming a cyberstalker. They appear to be insecure and seek a lot of external validation from their friends or from people in chat. They openly engage in substance abuse, regularly drinking alcohol and acting erratic and unstable in a live stream. Substance abuse is a big issue with cyberstalking and stalking. They tend to fixate on certain individuals and look for ways to talk about them, either to degrade and mock them or to sing their praises over and over. They show an inability to accept criticism and overreact to it in concerning ways. They misinterpret innocent comments as some sort of slight against them. They openly discuss ways to harm or trigger specific people. They create group chats with other people with the express purpose of triggering that person. They immediately become enraged at the mention of a certain person and engage in an hours-long profanity-laden tirade about them while accusing them of wrongdoing with no proof. Even in the face of overwhelming evidence of their own stalking, they're incapable of seeing themselves as a stalker and are incapable of changing their opinions after facts are put into evidence. Now, let's say you're already acquainted with someone you think could be a cyberstalker, or even worse, you believe someone is already cyberstalking you. What do you do? What I'm about to suggest is an amalgamation of information from various stalking awareness portals that I'll link in the description below so you can check them out for yourself. But in various ways, each of these forums recommended the following. First, if you feel harassed by the potential stalker, ask them to stop contacting you. This is the line that you draw in the sand. If they continue to obsessively contact you after you ask them not to, they could be dangerous. 2, completely disengage with the potential stalker and block them on every social media account. 3, set your social media accounts to private so they can't start looking for your friends and family to harass you after you've blocked them. 4, start to document every single incident you can so that if you end up needing to go to the authorities, you are able to show the course of conduct over time that is required for them to consider it to be stalking. Here are the things to document. Document how many videos have been made about you within a certain span of time. Document any false allegations that are made in those videos. Document every time the potential stalker tags you in the video description, since tagging is considered direct contact. Document every time the potential stalker makes threats, such as threats of violence or threats to contact people in your life, or even legal threats, especially if they're unfounded. Document every time the potential stalker has actually contacted people in your real life. Or maybe you think that they did and you can't prove it, but you can bring the evidence of the contact and then the police can determine whether it was done by that stalker. Document every time you receive unwanted or unexpected packages from the potential stalker or from anonymous sources that could be them. Document every time you're sent text messages, emails, and other direct communication, either from the potential stalker or anonymous accounts that may be operated by them, or their friends that are helping them stalk you. If you've documented a course of conduct over time and you believe you're still actively being cyberstalked, do not hesitate to go to the police with your evidence. Even if they don't believe you have enough evidence in the beginning to get a restraining order or press charges, your police department at the very least knows that they need to take distress calls from you more seriously. And it really does suck that stalking targets are required to show so much documentation before they go to the police. And to do that, they have to sit through the horrifying ordeal of watching themselves get berated and falsely accused and dragged over their mud in public. But the police are contacted so often with stalking complaints and harassing complaints that they won't take it seriously until you show the course of conduct over time and evidence of their intent. In fact, as we've seen on YouTube, some stalkers will preemptively accuse their victims of stalking them, so they can change the public perception of who the victim is. I talked about this in my live stream and video about the Darvo technique, and that's used by extremely manipulative people to effectively turn themselves into the victims in the eyes of the public. Another thing to do is avoid engaging in an active back and forth battle online with a cyberstalker. First of all, again, you don't know what could trigger them into actual violent action. Also, if you do take this to court and you've engaged in an active back and forth with them, but you know for sure that that other person is the aggressor, the court may not see it that way. That was a lot to get through, but I think it's very important and topical, especially considering the amount of actual stalking I see here on YouTube and the rampant lack of understanding of cyberstalking versus free speech. At the end of the day, we should all be much more careful about the words we throw out about other people, so that we don't, on one hand, normalize stalking behaviors or minimize their impact on people's real lives, or on the other hand, overuse the term stalker so much that the real and dangerous act of cyberstalking is clouded with hyperbole. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please interact with it and share it so more people are clearer about what cyberstalking is. And also, before you go on YouTube to drag a bitch, consider that maybe that bitch is currently being cyberstalked and just doesn't talk about it to avoid triggering the sensitive, unstable, and potentially dangerous cyberstalker. Peace out.